Hello and welcome. Tonight, another round of killings in Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State, with the bandits again taking the lives of 11 persons. Senators want service chiefs to step aside over on ND killings, but the presidency thinks otherwise. 48 hours, that's the timeline the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbadabiamila, has given Senator Akpabio to name lawmakers allegedly handling NDDC projects. And Labour and Employment Minister Chris Ngige threatens legal charges after lawmaker accuse him of hijacking NSITF budget and suspension of management team. And for the first time in more than 60 years, Nobel Prize banquets is put on hold due to coronavirus pandemic. Plus, business and news from Abuja, the FCT, and later from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari sends 2021 to 2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the Senate for consideration and approval.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria Professional Football Club, Rangers International fulfill promise of presenting insurance benefit to the family of their late striker, Ifeanyi George.
And from Abuja, federal government insists no date has been fixed for resumption of international flights.
We begin with security. Again, 11 persons have been reported killed by gunmen in Godagan village of Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna, less than 48 hours after 21 people were killed by bandits in Kaura local government area of the state. Channels Television gathers that the incident happened on Monday evening when the gunmen invaded Godagan village and started shooting sporadically. Our witnesses said the 11 people died as a result of gunshot injuries they sustained. Only last week, 24 people were killed by bandits in what seemed like coordinated attacks in 3 communities of Zangon Kataf local government. In this report, our correspondent, Orolu Ashonibare, highlights some of the recent security challenges in Nigeria as it comes at a time the Senate is asking service chiefs to step aside.
Another attack in Kaduna State that has claimed more lives. The situation in Nigeria is fast becoming one where killing is now an accepted norm, eroding our humaneness. High on the blame list for the waves of violence in the country, with emphasis on the northeast, are Boko Haram, bandits, and kidnappers. Like cracks in a wall, these groups did not just appear from thin air. Appointed to protect the nation are top military brass of land, air, and sea forces, with support from the police and other paramilitary agencies.
Well, we'll continue to operate along with other security agencies that are being charged with the responsibility of securing our country.
We have done substantially well in stabilizing the Northeast particularly and securing the Northeast. All you need to do is to look back in 2014 and put that side by side with what we are having today. On your own, you should be able to pass judgment.
But it seems there's been a problem understanding how to contain the mayhem. Many have called for the removal of the service chiefs who are said to have failed the nation. In June, President Muhammadu Buhari expressed his frustration, giving the military heads a final chance at getting things right. So how does this play out if they eventually let go? Some other top military officers will take the place, promise that the situation will be quashed in no time, and the nation will hope for the best. A similar sequence when the current service chiefs took over from their predecessors. Could it be that there may be more underlying factors instigating the crisis that whoever takes the mantle cannot surmount until these issues are faced with the seriousness they deserve? Orolu Ashonibare, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the presidency says that the insecurity in southern Kaduna is more complicated than many people are willing to admit. The presidency said in a statement that from available security records, the problem in southern Kaduna is an evil combination of politically motivated banditry, revenge killing, and mutual violence by criminal gangs acting on ethnic and religious grounds. It adds that southern Kaduna enjoys comprehensive security deployment, including the Army, special forces of both the Army and the Air Force, surveillance aircraft by the Air Force, and mobile police units that are on the ground on a 24-hour basis to forestall criminality and keep the peace. It warns residents against taking the law into their own hands, which means the job of security personnel is more difficult. We'll have more on the call for the service chiefs to step aside in the course of the bulletin. Senate Committee Chairman on the Army, Ali Ndume, will join us on the news at 10. Meanwhile, the patience of the Senate over the insecurity in the country has run out, as the upper chamber has called for the removal of service chiefs. The resolution is in response to a motion by Senator Ali Ndume on the recent ambush and the alleged voluntary resignation of soldiers. Senator Ndume says it's worrying that soldiers were ambushed recently in Katsina, with several of them killed, in addition to the allegations of unprecedented voluntary retirement of over 200 soldiers.
The Senate notes with concern the various reports of casualties among the Nigerian Army and other security agencies. The Senate further notes that just recently, 24 soldiers were ambushed and killed along Damboa-Maiduguri Road in Borno State. 19 were wounded and 9 were declared missing in action. The Senate is disturbed that in Katsina again, about 20 soldiers were also ambushed and killed, while several others were wounded. The number of civilian casualties is not known. The Senate is concerned that if the trend continues, it will have serious implications on the fight against insurgency, banditry, and other forms of criminality in the country. The Senate notes that recently it has been alleged that over 236 soldiers voluntarily resigned their engagement or appointment with the Nigerian Army.
Corps of service chiefs should step aside for new ideas to come in so as to energize our security system.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as ably moved that the service chiefs step aside for new people to come in. I so second.
Those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Francis Father on CCI. Those against any? Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues.
Staying with the National Assembly, but this time in the lower chamber, where the Minister of Labour has threatened to take legal action against the lawmaker James Falike for his allegations against him during plenary on July the 7th. Dr. Chris Ngige made the threat during the investigative hearing of the ad hoc committee of the House, which is investigating an alleged breach of presidential directive by the Minister of Labour. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
Honorable Chairman.
The Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, meets with an ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives over alleged disregard to a presidential directive issued on the 19th of May 2020, banning ministers from directly removing or disciplining heads of agencies and parastatals they supervise. Mr. Ngige is accused of suspending top management and executive committee members of the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, NSITF.
And I expect that I'll be finished with.
Madam Chairman, honorable colleagues.
My colleague and brother in the National Assembly, Honorable Faleke, did not speak onto that motion in the way of parliamentary processes. Accusations were heard on me. I was judged.
Mr. Minister, you also used your privilege as a minister to adjudge the suspended members of NSITF as being guilty.
Fine. It means I have another alternative. You will meet me in court after this place.
Let's go there.
Honorable damage my reputation.
Honorable colleagues.
Because you have legislative immunity, you damage my reputation.
Honorable colleagues.
No, Chair. I will not allow you.
Honorable Chair.
You're a small boy. Can't do
Please.
it.
What document is that?
This document is approval. from the AGF and the Chief of Staff and President.
I don't trust this document. It is poorly written. A permanent secretary doesn't know how to pronounce federal.
Some of us who are in the civil service, you started with spelling mistake. I correct spelling mistakes every day. Don't lose hope. I correct every day. Yes, even when permanent secretaries has vetted.
Spirit and course of action taken as directed by Mr. President, in the exercise of his constitutional powers as the Chief Executive of the Federation, since a prima facie case had been established, directed the immediate suspension of the management team of NSTF pending a detailed investigation into the matter.
Are you aware that the circular made certain procedures, made certain provisions for some procedures to be followed? Was these procedures followed in the case of NSITF management?
Once a position has been taken by Mr. President, the position of a circular becomes subservient to the directive of Mr. President.
We don't need certified copy.
Which one do you need now? This one.
We'll get this copy from the No witness under oath, tender a document, and he will withdraw that document.
I didn't tender the document. I told you it's
You're under oath.
No. I say for citing. No. For citing. It's even in my submission. I wrote it down there for citing.
I'd like to bring it to the knowledge of the committee that the Honorable Minister is yet to provide the Secretariat with that document, which forms basis of the essence of this investigative hearing. I'd like to put that clear for the
Honorable Minister
provided
the document
is not
cited.
in my possession. Is that carried?
Yes. Put it on the votes and proceedings, and the votes and proceedings is a public record.
Appears the controversy over the federal government's special public works program for the employment of 774,000 jobs across the country is far from over. The Senate and the House of Representatives are insisting that the National Directorate of Employment is to implement the special public works program. For the lawmakers in the House of Representatives, no funds shall be released for the public works program if it will breach due process. The Senate also maintains that it will execute its oversight functions on the program in line with the Appropriation Act, the Constitution, and other enabling laws. In part two, after the break, former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan gives President Buhari feedback on ECOWAS mission to Mali on the political crisis there. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television, Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Another round of killings in Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State, with the bandits again taking the lives of 11 persons. Senators want service chiefs to step aside over unending killing, but the presidency thinks otherwise. 48 hours, that's the timeline the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbadabiamila, has given Senator Akpabio to name lawmakers allegedly handling NDDC projects. Reps accused Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, of nepotism over sack of NSITF management as he threatens legal charges. And for the first time in more than 60 years, the Nobel Prize banquet is put on hold due to coronavirus pandemic. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Please subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Now let's return to our lead story, bordering on the security situation across the country, particularly the worst affected areas of the northern region. And joining us live from Abuja is the Senate Committee Chairman on the Army, Senator Ali Ndume. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Our pleasure. The Senate called on the service chiefs to step aside, and even though the presidency has clarified that it's not their call to make, do you think that decision is necessary at this time?
Well, first of all, it's very unfortunate that the main intentment of my motion today under matter of urgent national importance have been diverted by this issue of or asking the service chiefs to step aside. The major intentment of the motion was, one, to really appreciate, condole, and observe a minute's silence in the honor of our fallen heroes who have put their life on line, and within the span of 2-3 weeks, 42 or more of those soldiers were lost, and 192 civilians were killed. That was the main intention of the motion. And secondly, to also urge the federal government to, as a matter of urgency also, equip the Nigerian Army, give them the necessary funds and the support in order to execute these various challenges. 3 major challenges that we are facing in the north: insurgency in the northeast, banditry in the northwest, and then, you know, in the north central, we have this issue of herdsmen and cattle rustlers, even though that has gone down now. But as you can see, after I moved the motion, and as it is in the National Assembly, a senator, moved a motion for additional prayers, and that was where we lost the major intentment. I still stand, and I use this opportunity to say, look, you can't ask from those that don't have. The Nigerian Army doesn't have the number. They are not well equipped. They don't have the necessary modern technology. They are not funded, and you cannot expect them to perform, or anybody to perform magic. If the Army have to succeed in the security challenges that we are facing, then the Nigerian government have to stand up, give them the necessary equipment, the resources they need, and then you can say, oh, if you don't do this within so time, you are gone. But right now, as you can see, we lost 18 or 20 soldiers in Katsina as a result of ambush. If you had, those army had a simple drone that can go to 30, 40 kilometers ahead of them to, as a kind of surveillance to see what is on their targeted place, they will not be going there unprepared.
Okay, thank you for pointing out, Senator Ndume.
And the cost of life lost, one life.
Thank you for pointing out that you didn't raise that motion, but when it was raised, there was a majority that supported it, which brings us to this discussion.
No, I saw it, what happened. When that happened, I was out, as I said, I went to pray. But when I came back, Father Onsi himself told me that he moved for that motion. But I'm saying that, as you can see, one, as the presidency rightly responded, it is not our responsibility. It is that of Mr. President to appoint whoever he wants for the position of service chiefs.
What therefore is your position? What therefore is your position?
He knows when.
What therefore is your position, Senator? What therefore is your position, since you're not in agreement that they should step aside? What then is your position?
Is that
on the security situation in general?
That is not my major concern, as I said, who heads the whatever. The issue of insecurity in Nigeria should be addressed, and it can only be addressed if you provide whoever you assign with that responsibility the necessary tools, equipment, and resources that he needs to execute that project. If he fails to do that, then you have every reason to sack him and get somebody else. But as of now, even if we change the service chiefs tomorrow, since the soldiers on ground are not equipped, they are not well motivated, they don't have the number, how can they win the war?
So therefore, what you're highlighting is the paucity of funds. Is that what you're saying?
We are leaving the major issue
which is a paucity of funds. You're highlighting that there must be some sort of funding problem that needs to be addressed.
Equipment, the number,
right?
Look, Nigerian army is in northeast fighting insurgency. They are in northwest now fighting banditry. They are in north central facing kidnappers, headsmen, and all that. They are in south, making sure that the issue of vandalization, of stealing of crude oil is not. I mean, with 200 or less than 200,000 people, you can't do that. That is the truth. And then when you move your army without equipment, like simply, those soldiers in Damboa were killed as a result of bomb planted or something like that. If you had bomb detectors or mine detectors ahead of them, that would have been avoided.
What about the money that was
anyway?
What about the monies that have been approved for security in the northeastern region? The $1 billion.
$10 trillion. No, wait. In a 10 trillion naira budget of 2020, go and check, it's less than 1% that is allocated to the armed forces for capital. And that has not even been released until last week. 7 months into the year. I mean, let's tell ourselves the truth.
But with what you have available, do you think there's any misapplication of the funds that you have available?
Misapplication, the funds are not just there. Let me tell you, because I'm an insider now that I'm oversighting them, it was only last week that they released 50% of their budget. For God's sake, why don't you give them 100% and ask them to do this work within a month or two?
What do you, okay, so therefore the way forward
they're giving money out, Look, wait, the Constitution is very clear. I think we have misplaced our priorities. The Constitution says, for Section 42B, says the main purpose of governance is security and welfare of its citizens. And then you are talking about roads, you are talking about this, you are talking about that. I mean, there are roads now that you cannot ply in Northwest. Well tarred,
So as a Senate committee,
there are some villages that you cannot go out
as the
because
committee,
there's no security. In my own village, let me tell you, in my own village, they just call me. Every day they kill people in their farms.
So as the Senate Committee Chairman of the Army, you're proposing that more funds should be released to the military.
Only funds, but equipment should be procured. Let me give you another example. We are celebrating 3 helicopters bought by Nigerian government in February or so, last year. A small country, this Myanmar, they bought 13 of them at a go.
Okay, we'll just have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Senator Ali Ndume, the Senate Committee Chairman on the Army.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. I'm done. Go.
It appears lawmakers, meanwhile, are not taking the accusation by the Minister of Niger Delta, Senator Godswill Akpabio, over award of contracts at the NDDC lightly. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has thrown a challenge to the minister to publish the names of lawmakers who were awarded contracts by the NDDC, as well as the details of the contracts within the next 48 hours. According to the Speaker, the minister owes the entire country the honor of publishing the names in the interest of transparency, and if he fails to do so, the House will employ the full wrath of the law. Mr. Gbajabiamila says the minister's utterances is nothing but the oldest trick in the book.
I've been in this house this is my 5th term here. I've never once collected anything from the National Assembly, and I know I speak for a great majority of members of this house. Great majority. And because of that, I will take this matter and this allegation and accusation very serious. And I will give the minister 24 to 48 hours to publish the names, the contracts so given, the dates, because obviously these things will be documented. Unveil the companies of the 60% projects that were given to members of the National Assembly. Failing which, this House will bring the full wrath of the law. There are laws in our books for defamation.
And joining us from our studios in Abuja with more stories is Linda Ahigbe. Hello, Linda.
Hello, Lumide. Now to the presidency. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has briefed President Buhari on his follow-up mission to Mali. ECOWAS had appointed Dr. Jonathan to lead a special team to Mali to find a lasting solution to the leadership crisis rocking the country. The hour-long meeting, which held behind closed doors at the State House, Abuja, also had in attendance the chairman of the ECOWAS Commission and other members of the delegation to Mali. Dr. Jonathan said he is optimistic that a unity government will bring an end to the leadership crisis in Mali, but explains negotiations are still ongoing with the opposition.
We had a situation in the country where executive, legislature, and the judiciary have not operated optimally. Our interactions with them and the recommendations, we believe before the end of this week, the Constitutional Court will be in place. They will sort out these 31 seats, and the Parliament will also be in place. And of course, the President is already setting up a government of national unity so that he will get ministers, 50% from his party, 30% from the opposition, and 20% from civil societies and professional bodies, including teachers union, lecturers union, medical doctors union, lawyers union, the bar, and so on. And from these professional bodies and civil societies, get under 20%. So if this three is done and the government is running, issues of demonstration and so on, we can manage. And of course, has also set up a committee that will monitor the progress. And some of these gray areas will be examined. Let me use this opportunity to commend Mr. President publicly. I've already sent a letter to him appreciating that. It's a good gesture. And even completing the program is good. It shows that the President is going on with the legacy projects of previous administrations. So, and that is the way to go.
There is no date fixed for the resumption of international flights as being reported in some quarters, and this is according to the Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika. The minister said in a Twitter message today that the National Airspace Management Agency only issued a routine 30-day notice for airmen. He insists that international flights will not resume yet, but emphasized that the operation might resume earlier than October. The federal government had placed a ban on international flights following the outbreak of coronavirus in the country. And as the battle against COVID-19 continues, the Nigerian government says it has received a 3-year grant amounting to $890 million from the Global Fund to help fight HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis in the country from the year 2021 to 2023. The Minister of Health, Dr. Sagie Hanire, who confirms the receipts of the grant to journalists in Abuja, also notes that another $28.1 million has also been approved by the Global Fund to support the country's COVID-19 response. Global Fund is an international health financing mechanism of the United Nations established in 2002, and Nigeria has contributed a total of $28.62 million to the Global Fund. When the News at 10 returns, President Buhari sends 2021 to 2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the Senate. That's in business news. Join us again. You're welcome back to the News at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. A total of 6,000 Nigerians stranded abroad since the outbreak of COVID-19 have been evacuated back home, according to figures released by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM. The commission says some of the evacuees include Nigerian students abroad, those who migrated for other businesses but became stranded with the outbreak of COVID-19, as well as those who had challenges in their country of residence. The chairman of the commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Iriwa, explains that the federal government will no longer tolerate the maltreatment of its citizens abroad going forward. To politics now. The People's Democratic Party has inaugurated its campaign council for the September 19 governorship election in Edo State. Speaking at the event in Benin City, the state capital, the candidate of the PDP in the election, Governor Godwin Obaseki, said the campaign strategy will be more tedious but good for true democracy. According to him, the coronavirus pandemic will force political parties to reach out directly to the people for votes instead of relying on political rallies.
A limited crowd inside the campaign office of the PDP in line with COVID-19 social distancing directives. They are members of the newly constituted Edo State Campaign Council, including the party's flag bearer in the September 19 governorship election in the state, Governor Godwin Obaseki, and his deputy, Philip Shaibu.
I don't have a gavel here, but once again, just know that you have been inaugurated. So rude.
The campaign council has only one item on the agenda, ensuring victory for the party in the governorship poll. Head of the PDP campaign council, Mr. Sardion Ogie, and the chairman of the advisory committee, Dan Abe, kickstart the campaign process.
We are going to work day and night until our governor is delivered and the PDP makes entry into the government house. Those who say they are godfathers, we don't have godfathers, but we have God the Father.
You have shown uncommon leadership qualities with so much frustration and challenges. You have been able to show Edo people that you are a focused leader. For that, Edo people will support you.
The usual political campaign pattern of large rallies may have been made impossible due to the coronavirus pandemic. But Governor Obaseki says it's a blessing in disguise for democracy.
So rather than just have huge rallies at the state, senatorial or local government levels, we will now go to the units and the wards to meet voters. That is going to be more tedious, but it is going to be leading to the spirit of democracy, which means government of the people, for the people, by the people.
It's about 2 months to the governorship election in Edo State. The PDP believes that the party is on track to secure a second term in office for Governor Godwin Obaseki.
From Edo to Ondo State, where an Akure High Court has thrown out a motion seeking to stop the Deputy Governor of the state, Mr. Bola Ajayi, from contesting the governorship primary of the People's Democratic Party in the state tomorrow. The presiding judge, Justice Bode Adegbeyinde, threw out the motion ex parte filed by a member of the party and asked him to serve the necessary parties instead of seeking for the motion. Mr. Olufpele had, through his counsel, Akpofowe Anthony, sought the disqualification of a deputy governor over allegations that his certificate was forged. He argued that Mr. Ajayi, who is a governorship aspirant under the PDP, had breached the code of conduct for public officers and should therefore be banned from holding any public office for a maximum period of 10 years. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Olumide.
Thank you, Linda. Ahead of the partial closure of the ever-busy Lagos 3rd Mainland Bridge scheduled for the maintenance by the Federal Ministry of Works from July the 24th, 2020 to January 2021, the Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, is calling on motorists to be patient as the repair work on the bridge commences. Mr. Fashola explains that the maintenance of the busiest bridge in the country is aimed at replacing damaged components for better motoring experience. He further explains that the maintenance exercise will be carried out on a length of 3.5 kilometers out of 11.8-kilometer bridge, and that the rehabilitation becomes imperative due to failing and damaged portions.
Let me say that with every sense of duty and responsibility, that safety and our ultimate common convenience underpin this decision. And if there was another way to do this, we would have taken that way. But regrettably, as you have heard, there's really no other way. As you have also heard, this is a partial closure. We are closing essentially the stretch of the bridge between Adeni Diagele and Adekunle, which is the exit to Yaba. So that stretch is 3.5 kilometers, whereas the bridge itself is 11.8 kilometers. The bridge itself, which I will call the third bridge, started life in the 1970s. That's when it was conceived. And it was conceived as a response, one of the responses there, to the rapid urbanization of Lagos and its increasing population and traffic problem.
The governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umahi, has signed the revised 2020 budget of 132 billion naira into law. Governor Umahi, who signed the Appropriation Act virtually at the Ecumenical Center in Abakaliki, the state capital, says the initial budget of 178 billion naira was cut down to 132 billion naira following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the governor, the state government is focusing more on agriculture and other select projects to inject funds into the economy in order to fast-track recovery from the pandemic.
These we have selected, agriculture. We've selected completion of certain facilities of Ebonyi State, like the mall. That is going to inject a lot of funds into our economy. Completion of the teaching hospital to inject funds into our economy. Completion of the international market to inject a lot of funds to our economy. And so these are all part of rejigging the economy, and is part of a total of 28.61 billion.
And now it's time for business news. Here's Anne Wanwado.
Thanks a lot, Olumide. Welcome to Business News. President Muhammadu Buhari has forwarded the 2021 and 2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the Nigerian Senate for approval. The MTF paper, alongside a letter by President Buhari, was read during plenary at the Senate by the Senate President Ahmed Lawan today. In the letter, President Buhari notes that the 2021 budget will be prepared early, in line with the January to December fiscal year calendar, and the appropriation will be based on the parameters and fiscal assumptions of the approved MTF. American business magnate Bill Gates has donated $1 million to address challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. The statement, issued today by the United Nations Development Programme resident representative in Abuja, Mr. Mohamed Yahya, says the additional fund is in response to a rapid rise in the number of confirmed cases in Nigeria. The UNDP representative explains that as a recognized COVID-19 response financing investment platform, the facility provides a timely opportunity to stand with Nigeria and channel financial contributions towards the COVID-19 multi-sectoral response. The Naira fell to a fresh low today as it exchanged at 472 to a dollar at the parallel market. However, at the investors' window, the Naira traded at 388.17 to the dollar, while it exchanged at 575 and 530 accordingly against the British pound and the euro. Analysts have attributed this current volatility of the Naira at the parallel market to the antics of currency speculators following the recent official depreciation of the local currency by the Central Bank of Nigeria. An additional 49.63 billion naira, that's the amount that's been lost to another round of shares sell down by investors today as the stock market maintained negative posture for a second day this week, while volume of transactions, of course, dropped by 0.3%. Chimezi Obiwago has the details.
Thank you, Anne, and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The Nigerian equities market was not moved by the positive reports about the coronavirus vaccine trials. While we saw the global markets basking in the euphoria of that positive news, the local stock index chose to remain in the red. And do you know why? The much anticipated half-year earnings season has kicked off, with Unilever being the first major company to announce its results, which wasn't impressive. The consumer goods company's top line was down by almost 40%, no thanks to the impact of the COVID-19 lockdown. And see what the all-share index did today, down 0.39%. The major culprit to this fall is Dangote Cement. The industrial heavyweight lost 4 naira. And look at what it did to that sector. All the other sectors were not smiling either. In 3,500 deals, investors churned out about 3.3 billion naira for a little over 304 million shares. With the earnings season kicking off, the COVID-19 lockdown effect is expected to manifest on companies' earnings. And so the outlook in the short term looks a bit gloomy, but the market might still see a light in the tunnel at the end of the day. Let's just keep the hopes high. And that was the Stock Market Report. I'm Chimezi Obi Iwago. Back to you, Anne.
And that's Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawade. The rest of the news at 10 continues with Olumide.
Thank you, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10. For the first time in more than 60 years, Nobel Prize banquet is put on hold due to coronavirus pandemic. Plus, more stories from our London studios on Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. Welcome back. For the first time in more than 60 years, the Nobel Peace Prize banquet will not hold as the event has been cancelled due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, the prize winners for the 2020 year will be announced, but the event scheduled for December 10th will not be going ahead. The event was last cancelled in 1956 in protest at the Soviet Union's invasion of Hungary and during both world wars. Here's Simon Puzi with more international news and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. European Union leaders have struck a deal on a huge post-coronavirus recovery package following a fourth night of talks.
This is a good deal. This is a strong deal.
The deal involves 750 billion euros in grants and loans to counter the impact of the pandemic in the bloc of 27 members. It is the biggest joint borrowing deal ever agreed by the EU. Summit chairman Charles Michel said it was a pivotal moment for Europe, while President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen said there is still lots of work ahead.
Europe as a whole has now a big chance to come out stronger from the crisis. Today we've taken a historic step we can be all proud of. But another important step remains ahead of us. First and foremost, we now have to work with the European Parliament to secure agreement. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but tonight is a big step forward towards recovery.
There should be immediate action by government and intelligence agencies to tackle the threat of Russian interference in UK politics. That's according to a long-awaited report.
Russia poses an all-encompassing security threat.
Announced by the Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee in London, the document says the government was playing catch-up despite evidence of interference in the Scottish independence referendum. It also accuses the government and spy agencies of being reluctant to even consider the topic of Russian interference. In response, the Kremlin said Russia never interfered in another country's electoral processes. In the US, law enforcement have clashed with protesters in Portland as some people tried to break into a federal courthouse where agents were stationed. Protesters had gathered outside the courthouse to demonstrate against a federal crackdown on anti-racism protests in the city, which has involved unmarked cars and unidentified officers, angering people across the country. Meanwhile, Los Angeles residents have formed long lines at a drive-through coronavirus testing site as the California governor, Gavin Newsom, said the state's COVID-19 positivity rate was holding steady. The testing facility at Dodger Stadium is one of the busiest in Los Angeles County, and people waited in their cars for hours for a test. Newsom said the number of cases, hospitalizations, and intensive care unit admissions were all still rising in California, but not nearly as much or as fast as in recent weeks. Sudan has started a new trial against the ousted President Omar al-Bashir and some of his former allies on charges of leading a military coup that brought the autocrat to power in 1989. If convicted, the former president, who ruled Sudan for 30 years, could face the death penalty. Al-Bashir has also been indicted by the International Criminal Court for alleged war crimes and genocide in the western Darfur region. He was overthrown last year after months of pro-democracy demonstrations. Meanwhile, Kenya's candidate to the World Trade Organization's top post has said she is seeking Washington's backing as she emerges as one of the top 2 African female frontrunners. Delegates have said that Amina Mohammed is one of the favourites alongside Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala to replace Brazil's Roberto Azevedo as Director General, although weeks of campaigning lie ahead. The World Trade Organization has never been led by a woman or an African. Activists in Senegal have been campaigning against unchecked construction, which they say is speeding up coastal erosion, threatening the environment, and blocking access to public beaches. Local activists have shot this video to increase awareness of threats to the capital Dakar's eroding shoreline. Scientists have also warned of the environmental risks posed by unregulated construction to accommodate the capital's population of 3 million people, which is growing at twice the rate of the rest of Senegal. China has threatened a forceful counterattack in response to Britain's announcement that it would suspend its extradition treaty with Hong Kong following Beijing's introduction of a national security law. The Chinese news conference comes after British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab told Parliament the extradition treaty would be suspended immediately and an arms embargo would be extended to Hong Kong. The decision has infuriated China, who has repeatedly told Western powers to stop meddling in Hong Kong's affairs. And finally, the World Surf League has announced the 5 nominees for the Wipeout of the Year category, an award that shows surfing is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. It is no surprise that Jaws, an infamous wave in the Pacific Ocean off the Hawaiian island of Maui, features 3 times in the category. The public can vote for their favourite wipeout online between July the 20th and July the 23rd, with the winner announced on July the 27th. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. And now for sports news, here's Jeffrey Uzono. Thanks, Olumide, and welcome to the exciting world of sports. The Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, has received the audit report of the facilities at the National Stadium in Lagos. The minister, while receiving the report, said he will kickstart the full implementation of the restructuring of the stadium to international standard. The 13-man Ministerial Task Force Committee was inaugurated on June the 9th. The Nigerian Football Federation has commended former Super Eagles goalkeeper NDDC Egbo for leading Albanian side FK Tirana to win the country's league. With this feat, Egbo becomes the first Nigerian and African to guide an European club to a top-tier domestic title. The NFF says Egbo has set a good example for Nigerian coaches to accomplish great things. The Nigerian Professional Football League club, Rangers International of Enugu, have presented insurance benefit worth 20 million naira to the family of late striker Ifeanyi George. George died on March the 22nd in a car accident along the Benin-Asaba Expressway after the league management suspended a top flight owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Flying Antelopes also retired the number 15 jersey worn by the player for 1 season. In the English Premier League, Watford plunged into relegation zone after a 4-0 hammering by Manchester City. The defeat means the Hornets' battle to stay up will go to the final day of the season, which is Sunday. Elsewhere, Aston Villa moved out of the relegation zone for the first time since February 28th with a priceless 1-0 victory over Arsenal. Egypt's Trezeguet beat Emiliano Martinez with a powerful first-time finish to lift his side above Watford on goal difference. And as it on sports, it's back to you, Olumide. Thank you, Jeffrey. And the main news again, 11 persons were killed by bandits in Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State less than 2 weeks after 24 people were killed in the same community. Also today, the Senate asked service chiefs to step aside over ending killings across the country, but the presidency insists that only the president has the prerogative to appoint or sack them. And for the first time in more than 60 years, Nobel Prize banquet was cancelled today due to the coronavirus pandemic. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Please stay safe.